Okay, we've got some pretty special guests today. I think you're really going to enjoy it. They're from an elite team, one of the greatest teams in Iowa history from 1985. First thing we'll mention, we had one other person that was going to be on this panel that's honoring America Needs Farmers, and that was Casey Wiegman, and he is sick today. So Casey is not going to make it, but I think you're going to be happy with who we do have on this panel today. So first of all, he played for Iowa and he lettered in 1983, 84, and 85. He was a captain. He was most valuable player, co-most valuable player. He was all Big Ten first team. He was named Big Ten Offensive or Lineman of the Year, Mike Haight. Mike played in the NFL. He was with the Jets and the Redskins from 1986 to 1992, and he was a first-round draft choice in it would have been 86 draft. So, Mike, have a seat right here. This next player played in 83, 4, and 5 is when he lettered. He was a co-MVP in 1985. Two-time academic All-Big Ten. He played in the Japan Bowl, and he's still 15th on Iowa's all-time receiving list. 112 catches, 1,685 yards from one of the elite families in Iowa football, Bill Happel. Okay, this next young man was the Iowa head coach 1979 to 1998. What can you say about him? He's a member of every football Hall of Fame that there is. He's the all-time winningest coach in Iowa history with a record of 143, 89, and 6. A member of the Iowa Hall of Fame. He's a member of the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. He took Iowa to 14 bowl games, 3 Rose Bowl. He is the king as far as Iowa football. Welcome back, Hayden Fry. He's still number one. This next guy was a quarterback. Played in 1981, 82, 83, 84, and 85. He's still the only player to play in 5 bowl games. That rule's kind of been changed, but he played in 5 bowl games. He was the MVP, co-MVP for the Hawkeyes, 3-time first team All Big Ten. He was a captain in 85. A consensus All-American in 1985. He was the Heisman runner-up and the closest vote in the history of the Heisman at that time. He's still Iowa's passing leader, 10,461 yards, and he still leads in total offense in the Iowa record books. He played in the Japan Bowl. He played in the NFL for the Lions and Rams. A member of the Iowa Hall of Fame, the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. He's a winner of the Maxwell Award, the Davy O'Brien Award, and in 1985, he was the Big Ten Most Valuable Player in football. What else was there in 85? He was the Big Ten Athlete of the Year. Welcome, Iowa football royalty, Chuck Long. Now on the other side of the ball, we had some pretty good players too. This guy played 81, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He was a captain in 85. He was an MVP, a co-MVP in 85, a 3-time first team All Big Ten performer. He was a 2-time academic All-American, a consensus All-American in 1985, first team also All-American in 1984. He also made honorable mention teams his freshman and sophomore years. Played in the Japan Bowl. He was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1986. He's a member of the Iowa Hall of Fame. and the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. He led Iowa in tackles 4 straight seasons, and that's still a record that's unequaled. 4 years in a row he led him in tackles. The great linebacker, Larry Station. I think these 4 guys could still play right now, and I know Coach Fry could still coach right now. So we've got a pretty elite group here right now. And one of the main things they're here for today is to talk about America needs farmers. And we know for darn sure America needs farmers. And, you know, they've always needed farmers. They still need farmers, and they're always going to need farmers. So it's something that Hayden Fry will give you a little history lesson before we get started. He started this in 1985. Some ridiculous referee, I think it was in 1992, before we were ready to play in the Kickoff Classic in New York, went to Coach Fry and said, those stickers have to come off the helmet. So we had to take them off the helmet, and then it was reinstituted by Coach Ferentz in the early 2000s. So it's been a fixture of Iowa football for a long, long time. Iowa needs farmers. So the first person we're going to go to right now is Coach Hayden Fry. And Coach, tell us a little bit about the impetus on why and when and the timing and everything on why you wanted this sticker and why you wanted this to happen for the Iowa farmers.
Thank you, Phil. This is a great crowd. We've had a wonderful turnout already for the FRYfest, and I want to thank the American Farm Association for helping sponsor. We've got a lot of sponsors, but the America Needs Farmer decal was something that had more impact than I ever imagined it would. However, being raised on a farm out in West Texas, I really had a deep love for the farmers and what they'd accomplished and what they were doing for America. I came to Iowa and found out that so many people here were farmers. And I was one of those kids that grew up, they let me out the school bus from practice. I still had to walk about 3 miles to get to the farmhouse. In fact, I was raised with the opinion that anybody that had a 2-holer was wealthy. So I decided when the economy went down in the mid-'80s here in Iowa, across the nation, the farmers were really hurting. Prices on eggs, cattle, sheep, whatever, all of the different things that you raise here in the state of Iowa went down, and the farmers were hurting. And having been raised on a farm, I wanted to do something about it. And during a staff meeting, I said, you know, we really need to help the farmers. And one of the gentlemen on my staff, and I can't even think of his name now, said, well, Coach, why don't we make a decal that says ANF, America Needs Farmers. I said, that's brilliant, that's great. I'd already organized Hawkeye Marketing Company. I couldn't believe I came to Iowa, 17 consecutive losing seasons, and very few people in the stands at the Iowa games had on black or gold. And I noticed that all of the teams that were really winning in the United States college football, all their fans had on the school colors. So between my wife and I and my number 2 son, Zach, we came up with Hawkeye Marketing Company. And of course, we really pushed the ANF decals. But we got 62 JCPenney stores across the nation to take our goods. And this gave us good publicity. And through the years, it's grown. And me having been raised on the farm, it's really made me feel good. And it made me realize, though, how great the people in Iowa are. And I'm going to tell you again, you were the reason that we turned the program around in the 3rd year after the 17 losing seasons to win the Big Ten and go to the Rose Bowl and keep going to bowl games with these gentlemen here by me. I didn't recruit them basically because of their athletic ability. I recruited them because they were winners in life. I could tell, having my master's in behavioral psychology, I studied people and their sensitivities. And we had a little forum, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, where I told a story about how I developed the theory of bell cow. Those of you that were at the other forum when I talked about this, you'll have to accept my apologies, but I want to repeat it because I know there's a lot of people here that weren't at the first one. I was going to school at 6 in the morning, living on a farm way out of town in West Texas. My daddy wanted me to feed the cows before I went to school. I said, Daddy, I don't have time. I can't go. I can't find those cows. We had about 2,000 acres leased because we couldn't afford the farm ourselves. He said, yes, you can. You can find the cows. You get that pickup truck, fill it up with hay, and you drive out there and stop and listen. There's one old cow out there that's their leader. I put a bell around his neck. You listen for that bell to ring and you'll find the whole herd. Sure enough, I drove out there, I heard the bell, I dumped the hay, came back, went to school. Through the years, I got to thinking about the bell cow. These gentlemen up here with me right now were all bell cows. I didn't tell them that. But I called them into the office one at a time because they were the leaders and the most highly respected players I had on the football team. And I knew that all the other players respected these young men up here and would listen to them, probably more so than the head coach. So I talked to these gentlemen and I'd say, what do we do in order to win? What do we need to do? And they'd tell me what they thought. I said, what do we need to do to get rid of, to stop doing? And they gave me that opinion. I said, now, will you please share that with your teammates? And they did. And that's how we turned the program around, along with your wonderful help here in Iowa. I don't know how to express my love for the people of Iowa. To me, what you see is what you get. Honest, hardworking people. And you were so appreciative of these gentlemen turning the program around and making it a winner. And so this is carried over into their lives. They're all successful, have great families. Their teammates love them, admire them. And it's just a wonderful experience for me and my wife to come back here and share some things with you that you probably never knew before. So I know they're going to be open for questions, whatever you want to ask them. But living on that farm and being raised on the farm, where my daddy taught me words of wisdom with a horse whip. I read in the paper where an NFL running back, he's really gotten penalized because he spanked his little boy, 4 years old, with a switch. I had a horse whip. I still got whips to prove it. But I got words of wisdom. My daddy'd say, bend over, son. I want you to remember this the rest of your life. Whop. After a couple of whops, I'd say, Daddy, what is it you want me to remember? And he'd give me some words of wisdom. And I used that in coaching all those years because I was shot at and hit. My whole career, I took over 3 losing programs. It was terrible, really bad. First year in North Texas, we won the Missouri Valley Championship. Took 4 years at SMU, which was terrible. They hadn't had a winning season in 12 years. Since Don Meredith was the quarterback. We won the Southwest Conference Championship. 3 years here at Iowa, hadn't had one in 17 years, plus the first 2 years that I was here, and we won the Big Ten. It gets back to my growing up knowing that I never hired an assistant coach in my life unless I knew that he was motivated to become a head coach. Then I knew he'd be sensitive to his players. It wasn't just athletic ability, but it was the motivation, the inspiration that the players had to get an education and to win. And these guys will all tell you it's carried over into their family, their life, their business. They're all winners. And that's the reason I come back here for the FRYfest, because it's an inspiration to me to see all of you fine people that helped us become winners. So you got questions here. I know my good buddy over here with the microphone, Phil Hattie, who was on the program all those years. He'll let you ask questions, and I haven't coached him on what to say, so we're going to get some great answers. Thank you.
We're going to get to questions in just a little bit, but Coach talked about his love for the Iowa fans, and I think that's probably exceeded only by the love they have for you. So, Coach Fry, thanks for coming back.
Real quick, short story. First ball game, standing on the sidelines at Kinnick Stadium. Every time we make a first down, the crowd would give us standing ovation. And I'm on the sideline thinking, I wonder what they'd do if we scored a touchdown.
Unfortunately, I think we lost that first game to Indiana.
We were ahead 26-6 or 26-7 at the half, and Kinnick Stadium just exploded. They were so happy and so forth. We went into the locker room, and the first thing I said to my assistant coaches, I said, in football and all other games, you have to learn how to win. The game isn't over. And sure enough, Indiana came back, and about the last play of the game scored a touchdown and beat us by, I got to think, 1 point. I don't remember the scores of the games. I can remember every game we won. I can't remember one we lost.
So you probably remember the name Mario Pace from that game. I think he was the defensive back that let the touchdown go for late in the game. But anyway, we're going to, as we digress here, we're going to let all of these young men talk a little bit. Maybe they're not quite young anymore. I realized how old they're getting as I walked by a mirror myself. But we're going to start out with Mike Haight. You know, the one common thread here that you see up front, we've got a guy from Omaha, Nebraska. We've got a guy from Illinois, and we've got two Iowans right here. So they've all got farm roots in their past. They all know about the work ethic, and they all know about the dedication of farmers in Iowa and Midwesterners in general. So, Mike Haight, you're from a really special family as far as Iowa football, concerned. Your brother Dave also on the Iowa team, so you've got a lot invested in the university, the state, and everyone else here. What does it mean to you when you put that A&F sticker on your helmet back then?
Well, funny you should say that. I have my very last helmet that I wore, 1985, when we were in the Rose Bowl, and it does have America's Needs Farmer sticker on it.
I'll hold it for you.
That's an antique, by the way. What is that, 30 years? I don't know if I can put it on my head anymore, but my wife looked at it before we came, and I don't know if I should even show this, but here's my mouth guard. Anybody want? Oh, boy. So, that sort of tells you what this means to me. Hawkeye, football, America needs farmers. It means the world to me. I was born, raised here in the state of Iowa, got the opportunity graciously from Coach Fry to even become part of the Hawkeye football tradition. And I don't know why he did, but somehow I got invited. But my first 5 years, I was there 5 years because I was redshirted 1 year. So I got to go to 5 bowl games. I went to a Rose Bowl in '82 for my '81 season. And then we went to the Peach Bowl. Then we went to the Gator Bowl, went to the Freedom Bowl, playing against a big rivalry of Coach Fry, and put the hurt right on good old Texas, 55-17, if I remember right. That was a huge game. and a huge game for Chuck too, because I think he broke every record there is, and I can't imagine anybody breaking any of them from then at that time. And then, of course, the last year when I wore this helmet, it still has marks on there from colors of the UCLA team and all that sort of thing. And it was just amazing being a part of a team and a family that we had. Now, Phil had mentioned, and I believe Coach Fry did too, there was quite a few Iowans on that team, which really made it special for us because we just wanted to go out and do the best for not only ourselves, but for our families, for our neighbors, for the people in the state of Iowa, the farmers who were out there that were giving their last nickels, because literally some of them were just to come to maybe watch these games or stay at home and be able to watch us on TV. It was unbelievable. We had such great support. We had people bringing us gobs of corn, beef, and hamburgers and all that sort of thing for eating at our training table, and even a few picnics that we had before, during, and after the ball games. Maybe not during, but it felt like it though. But we were taken care of very well by the people of the state of Iowa. It was just amazing, and that's something that I'll never forget, and I'm super, super proud of, especially, the support that we've gotten from day one. The very first time I walked out onto Kinnick Stadium my freshman year, I believe it was, wasn't the first game against Nebraska. Wow. I went to Dyersville Beckman, if anybody knows where that is. And we were quite happy to get maybe 1,000 people there, usually around 300 or so. But when the stadium was absolutely packed to the gills against a team against Nebraska who always put the hurt on people, and they were there to put the hurt on us, and we ended up winning. It was just absolutely unbelievable. That's the kind of tradition Coach Fry started. It took it to the third year, and luckily Bill, you weren't here that first year, were you? Yeah, he came the following year, but me and Chuck were both there, and I can tell you that it'll be something that we never forget. And there's so many other games that are just the same way. Again, I want to thank everybody that's here, number one, but everybody across the state of Iowa, whoever was a Hawkeye follower, still is a Hawkeye follower, just keep supporting us. We really appreciate it. Thanks. Go Hawks!
That's Mike Haight, Lineman of the Year in the Big Ten in 1985. Okay, Bill, you're the closest one to Iowa City of everybody. You're the same high school class, not same class, but same high school as myself, Cedar Rapids, Washington. And I mentioned to Bill that I don't want to age myself, but earlier this month I was at my 50th high school reunion. Of course, I started high school when I was 10, but so Cedar Rapids, Washington, you know exactly what it meant to be a farmer in this part of the state, and what did it mean to you when that A&F sticker went on and during your Iowa career?
Well, and if anyone's seen the show they did on the Big Ten Network on our 85 team, I kind of told this story there, but I initially had a little bit different perspective. Growing up in Iowa, I remember when Coach came to the team and said, is this something you want to do? And everyone, of course, said, of course. The plight of the farmers in the mid-'80s, as Coach said, people were losing their farms right and left. We were fortunately ranked number one, or if we weren't at the time we put the sticker on, we were shortly thereafter. So we were on TV every week. So we were very visible for the state of Iowa, and we were kind of on the map, and we were the ones that could kind of get this discussion going. But when they first came, I remember thinking to myself, being from Iowa, having to fight the stereotype, my whole life, that all we have here are farmers, and that's it, and that's what I was known about. I was a little kind of, oh, geez, now we're going to promote this stereotype even further, and that was honestly the first thing that came to my mind. And it took about, 10 seconds, one day, to realize, and throughout the year, what a great decision that was, to put that on our helmets, because I had people coming up to me all the time thanking me for putting the sticker on. And that's what really, at the time, I'm thinking it's just a sticker, you know. And I think for those people that were going through the crisis at the time, it meant so much more. And I think to this day, they're still doing it. I think it creates a bond, not only between the farming community and the University of Iowa, but the entire state, because I think the entire state realizes how important farming is to our economy and everything. So I just think I really grew up pretty quickly, and I was very excited, and I've been honored ever since to be the first team to wear it.
Thanks, Bill. Bill Happel. Bill's father, who we lost just last year, was an outstanding receiver with the Hawkeyes, and Bill Jr. carried on his tradition by making it to the Rose Bowl, because his dad was in the Rose Bowl in the 1950s under Forrest Evashevsky. So great tradition there with the Happel family and Iowa football.
I always get when they talk about my dad and the Rose Bowl, I always get the Aflac trivia question came up in about, I was watching the Rose Bowl, and I think it was in like 2000. I mean, and I don't know, Michigan State was playing somebody, or I don't even remember who was in it, but there was actually an Aflac trivia question on the Rose Bowl that said, who's the only father and son to score touchdowns in the Rose Bowl? And I'm sitting there watching it going, I know that one. I got that one.
All of a sudden it popped up. That's a great honor for your family. You know, it speaks tons for the Iowa mentality when you see right now a linebacker from just a couple years ago with Iowa, James Morris, Bill Belichick, obviously headed for the Hall of Fame someday, but he said James Morris, who is expected, by the way, to make the team with the New England Patriots, says, what does he represent? He said he's just like any other Iowa boy that I've ever been associated with. He's got a great work ethic. He's dedicated. He's organized. He's everything you want in a player. Tough. So these players all represent that kind of thing too, and what an honor that would be if James Morris can make the defending world champions team this year, and I think he'll do it. Now, we go all the way to Omaha. Larry, he was brought up, you know, I'm not saying on a farm, but his family owned a grocery store, just the same as I'm honored to say my family owned a grocery store too, a little corner grocery store, and that made you, I'm sure a lot of your clients were farmers or people that came in from the farm maybe, but nonetheless, you always had an appreciation for what the people on the working the land did, and tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, as you know, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and a lot of people who are not from the Midwest assume that everyone around Omaha and just the Midwest, we are all farmers. And so when I arrived at the university back in '82, a lot of the black players who came here from out east, Devon Mitchell, Ronnie Harmon, they all came up to me. It's like, "You're a farmer?" I said, "Yeah, I am a farmer." And even though I wasn't, I gave them the whole story that I baled hay, milked cows, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. And but I just tell you, growing up with my father with a grocery store, you know, indirectly, obviously, we benefit from the hard work from the farmers, and the way that helped me as a person is just the fact that as a farmer, same thing with the guys who run grocery stores, I mean, you put in a lot of long hours for not a lot of pay. And so every day I see my dad get up 6:30 in the morning. He would be up and going to work before I went to go to school. And then he would come home after I would get back from, say, football practice or track practice. So he's putting in 12, 14-hour days. And all the years I grew up, I never once heard him complain about being tired, complain about having too much work to do. And so just he instilled in me just that hard work ethic that all farmers and, say, grocery store owners have. So that's the one way I know that's benefited me, that I've applied it to my athletic and business career. I remember when Coach Fry initially said we're going to put A&F on the helmets and said America needs farmers. To me, it was kind of a rhetorical statement because when you look how big our offensive line was, I mean, we need a lot of farmers to feed those guys. I mean, they were huge. I mean, Mike Haight is still big. So I'm like, yeah, we need a lot of farmers for sure. But in general, though, I mean, I just want to let you all know, I mean, when I first went on my first football game here as a senior at Omaha Central, I came and watched Michigan State play Iowa. And the winner, well, actually it turned out that by Iowa winning that game, they ended up going to the Rose Bowl. But, I mean, just that stadium and the fans and all of you that were in the stadium, I mean, I was pretty much sold on going to Iowa after that game because I found out that there was 20 years of non-winning seasons that Iowa had endured, and yet Iowa was still selling out all the games. And so to me, that showed a lot of loyalty, and like I said, I definitely was impressed by that display. So thank you very much.
Larry Station. How many of you folks out there still remember that hit he put on Michigan's Jamie Morris in that Michigan game, huh? It was pretty good. That kind of, that was the hit that sent us about 3 miles west to the Rose Bowl.
That's right.
3,000 miles. Okay, next up, last but not least, you may not know it, but this guy actually has deep down in his roots a farming background. Chuck Long, you know, consensus All-American for the Hawkeyes. And now you see him quite a bit on the Big Ten Network and doing an outstanding job representing himself and the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Iowa football team as he does his work on the Big Ten Network, and he's also does a lot of stuff with sports affiliated organizations here in the state of Iowa. So Chuck Long, tell us about your farming background.
Thank you, Phil. First of all, thanks for being here. It's what a wonderful audience to come and see this today, and we really appreciate that. My story about farming, this is where A&F hit close to home. I did not grow up on the farm, but my grandparents, many people don't know this, but I was born in Norman, Oklahoma. My parents are born and raised Oklahomans, and their parents actually grew up on the farm and owned farms. And when I was a player here at Iowa in the 80s, my grandparents would often come to the ball games. And like clockwork, well, let me just tell you how it all went. We played on Saturday, and then Coach Fry made us get up at 6 in the morning to go over and run sprints at about 6:30 in the morning every Sunday morning after a game. 2 reasons why. Number one, to get the lactic acid out of our system, and also the soda pops out of our system. So we knew why he was trying to do that, but many of us went back to the dorm after that to take a nap, to go back to sleep. Well, I couldn't go to sleep yet because if my grandparents were in town, I had to take them around the countryside of Iowa, around Iowa City, to look at the beautiful farms. Because they own farms in Oklahoma. If you know anything about Oklahoma, what color's the dirt? Red dirt. They would come up and take me around to these beautiful farms to see them, and I'll never forget, like yesterday, my granddads would say, man, these farms are beautiful, and look at that rich black soil. And they loved it. And that really hit close to home with A&F. When the A&F sticker came out with Hayden Fry, and Coach Fry's just a marketing genius, and when he came out with that, I'll never forget my grandparents, they were still alive at that point. My granddads called me up and they said, Chuck, we love that man. Thank you very much for putting it for that A&F. That really hit close to home, and I'll never forget that. Like Bill said, Iowa was going through a tough time in the 80s in farming, and Coach knew that. And one thing Coach always said, hey, if you want to become friends with the Iowa people, you need to become friends with the Iowa farmers first. and he was really appreciative of what the farming community meant for our program, for the University of Iowa, and he gave that back twofold with the A&F sticker, because it was such a difficult time for farmers during that time, during the 80s plight. Since then, it's nice to see the rebound in farming. I recently went on a farm tour just last Saturday from all day long, and it's amazing how far farming has come with the technology today. Tractors practically driving themselves now. It's really amazing how far it's come, and it's good to see that. But I'll never forget that time. I'll never forget it. The A&F would have meant to my family, especially my grandparents who grew up on the farm and knew the value of the rich black soil. Thank you for being here. It's been a great time.
You can see back in 1985 when that A&F sticker, it was actually a perfect storm. It was, the farmers were in not such good shape. We had a football team that was ranked #1 in the nation for a number of weeks. And I dare to say, with the wonderful thought that we had we had a losing team or a losing season going on that year, it probably wouldn't have had the impact. But this helmet was appearing in Sports Illustrated covers. It was appearing everywhere, and people were saying, what's that A&F? And I think it brought to everyone's attention the plight of the farmers in Iowa. And this team did so much, and like I said, it was very lucky. We had an outstanding group of 110 players or so that blended together for a Big Ten championship, and that lended to help the A&F sticker. And I think ever since then, everyone around the country now knows that America needs farmers, and it's because of what these guys started. And my only contribution to this was the fact that I married a farmer's daughter. And it's the best thing I ever did. So, you know, thank God for the Iowa farmers, and thank God for Iowa football. And Coach, thanks to you for introducing the A&F sticker, and something that'll be around for a long time to come. Okay, now, if you want to, raise your, first of all, any of you guys have anything else to say before we take any questions? We'll take questions from the crowd. You guys think if you have any questions. Anybody else? This is your chance to say something without being asked if you want to say something. Okay. John Dane, I see you right here in front. You're going to ask me the question, and I'll forward it to him.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for laying that, but means a lot for me personally. But I would like to have Coach tell us his reaction in November of 1991 when he and the team were down in Columbus ready to play Ohio State. There was a terrible shooting on the University of Iowa campus. I want to know what happened.
Okay, Coach, the question is, in 1991, when we were in Columbus to play football, and there was a terrible shooting in Iowa City, your reaction to what happened, and you had to take stickers off the helmets and everything else, and what was going through your mind that day?
Well, we received news in the morning following the night of the shooting here at the University of Iowa. I personally was extremely worried because my offensive line coach, John O'Hara, wife worked in the administrative building on campus, and I'd heard that's where the shootings took place, and I was afraid that maybe John had lost his wife. We immediately did everything we could to make us look like we were in mourning, and not knowing for sure, because we hadn't had a telephone call, that she was okay. Fortunately, she was, as it turned out. But our football team dedicated the game to John O'Hara and his wife. Ohio State had a great football team, and you might remember one of the last plays of the game where we're behind. We had a special pass play designed that if the offensive end blocked, their cornerback would rush the passer. Well, we had Marv Cook, a tight end fake a block for 2 counts, and sure enough, the cornerback that's supposed to be covering him on pass defense rushed the passer, and then Marv Cook released, went down the field, caught the pass. It was on about a 4th and 26 situation. He caught the ball and drugged 3 Ohio State Buckeyes into the end zone with him, and we won the ball game.
And I think that was the next to the last game that Earl Bruce coached at Ohio State.
You know, that's something unusual, too. The news media never knew that the president of Ohio State at the time had been the vice president at the University of Iowa. He was now the president of Ohio State. The first visitor we had in the locker room after the game was the president of Ohio State to congratulate us. Really an unusual situation. And Coach Bruce, Earl Bruce, was a tremendous coach at Ohio State. In fact, the next week after we defeated the Buckeyes, Ohio State upset Michigan. They were underdogs to Michigan. They upset them. And Earl Bruce still got fired. Tells you something about coaching.
That vice president he's talking about was Ed Jennings here at the university, and he, along with Bump Elliott, are the 2 that went to interview Hayden when they hired him for the Iowa job in 1978.
I have to tell you this. I thought so much of Bump Elliott and Vice President Jennings flying down from Iowa to the Dallas airport. I was coaching at North Texas, and offered me the job. We were at a hotel for the interview. I paid for the hotel room.
Times were tough then. You got to remember we had 19 straight losing seasons. Questions out there? Over there. Okay, let's start with Larry. We'll work down here. You guys, your memories of that 1985 Michigan game, and we'll go to Coach Fry last on that. Larry, you're first.
Okay. Yeah, well, my memories of the Iowa-Michigan game in '85, they first start with the build-up towards the game because, I think I watched more film of Michigan prior to when we played them for that game than I had in any previous season. And so I wanted to be totally prepared once we got out there on the field. And actually, on one play during the game, a running back came out of the backfield, ran a streak pattern right past me, and I was tempted to run with the running back. But I remember actually on film, this was one of the plays where they had consistently gained 20 yards a play against other opponents because the linebacker would vacate his zone. But I remember instinctively from watching that I needed to stop and run right back towards the line of scrimmage because they always dumped it right off to the tight end. And that's exactly what they did. So, I made an immediate stop. Maybe it was like a 3-yard gain because of watching all the film that we did. And the other thing would be the the third down with 2 yards to go for a first down at the end of the game. A lot of people come up to me and tell me that was a great blitz that I put on, but I try to tell everybody it's not a blitz. It was a read. And even Coach Brazier is telling me it was a blitz one time. I think Coach Brazier, it wasn't a blitz, it was a goal line. So, but yeah, again, that's just basically knowing that we had to make a play and just knowing that if we didn't make that play, the game could be over. So, and that's the type of attitude that I think all the players have to have in order for you to have a great team. There got to be players on the team who have an attitude like failure is not an option. So, we're going to make the play no matter what it takes. So those are my 2 best memories from the game.
Great players make great plays. So that was the keynote of that team. Chuck Long?
Phil, that's an easy one for me. I will never forget the emotion and elation of the crowd when Rob Hotland kicked that field goal to win it. And the reason I mention that is I was in the NFL for 8 years and I coached for 20 more at some high-level places, and that emotion and elation of that crowd that day was never matched in my career again. And I will never forget that. Gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. The elation, the emotion, the euphoria of that crowd, the way they stayed after in Kinnick Stadium. And then they all seemed to spill out downtown later on, which was fun too. But I will never forget that as long as I live, because it was never matched again. And I was in a lot of big games as a player and a coach after that, but it was never matched. I will never forget that moment when Rob Howland kicked it through, and that crowd noise.
Maybe we ought to do that again this year. What do you say, folks? Okay, Bill Happel.
Well, I think, like Chuck said, you know, the fact that we had a number 1 versus number 2 matchup here at Kinnick, which I don't know if that's happened before. I know it hasn't happened since, but the build-up that week was just incredible. And I remember I had 3 midterms that week, and it was in October, and I had 3 midterms that week. And I usually tried to keep my studies up, but I made a conscious decision, like Larry. We were on the offensive side of the ball, and if anyone knew Coach Snyder, he pretty much demanded you're in there watching film all the time. So I kind of decided that I'd remember this Michigan game the rest of my life, and I probably wouldn't remember what grades I got on my midterms, and I don't. They weren't very good, but the preparation that went into that game, and just the game itself. I don't think I've ever been in a harder hitting game. I mean, Michigan had a great defense that year. We got 4 field goals on them, 1 touchdown from Helverson that if we had instant replay, we'd have got that one. But every single catch I had, I was hit right away and hit hard. And so I just respected that team so much for the way they played, and I think they played a lot like Larry and our defense played. It was really a slugfest, and then late in the game, I thought you go back and you watch the tape, and Coach Fry just called a brilliant last drive. I thought, you know, we took it down with 4 minutes left, and on first down we were passing the ball. On 3rd and 8, Ronnie Harmon's running a draw play, and we got it down. And like Chuck said, the final moments were fantastic, and as Chuck alluded to too, that night was a lot of fun downtown too. Sorry, Coach.
Mike, how about you?
Well, if anybody out there that is fairly close to football, they pretty much know that the kickers usually are not very well liked. And the reason why is everybody seems to think, well, I almost have to say it too, they don't do too much. But in this particular case, at the end of the game, when Coach Schembeckler tried to stall out Rob Howland three times? It was for sure 2 times that he stalled him out. And I don't know if you remember, I think there's pictures out there floating around of Rob where he's literally, we're in a huddle and he's standing over there over the top of his tee there for the football, sort of like in a trance, facing the ground, sort of bent over like this. And we're all going, what the heck is he doing over there? He better be kicking that ball correct here, you know, we're going to dogpile him or something. But after the second timeout and all that sort of thing, and when he kicks it and it sails through that goalpost, man, my love for kickers sure did change. Rob is a hero of mine.
Before you hear from Coach, I will share one story about that game. And now a lot of people may know this. I don't know if it's been out there before, but here's the genius of Hayden Fry, or the psychology of Hayden Fry. That was number 1 versus 2 for that game. Obviously, the build-up was tremendous. I mean, it was really intense week of practice, a lot of build-up to it, a lot of nerves. Everybody was uptight going in this football game. We go up to after the pregame warm-up for the last-minute instructions from Coach Fry in his pregame speech, and he cracks a joke. He cracks a joke in the biggest game in Iowa history right before the game. That's the genius of Hayden Fry. Loosen us all up so we can play at our highest level. But like I said, I was in coach for 20 years and worked for some great head coaches that never cracked a joke like Coach Fry before a big game like that. But that was the genius of Hayden Fry.
Okay, now let's hear from the coach on his thoughts on the Iowa-Michigan game.
I may have told this story before, at least part of it, but I'll share it with you because it's so interesting. Bo Schembechler was one of the all-time great college coaches, and on game day, he was the greatest competitor that I ever coached against. Outside of the game, he was a real gentleman, a class guy, and really enjoyed him. But I knew he was very sensitive about everything. He had his assistant coaches go downtown Iowa City and go to the grocery store and get white butcher paper to put over the pink locker room, dressing room walls. They worked all day so that when the players went in, they wouldn't see the pink locker room. Pre-game warm-up, I changed the guards and the centers snapping the ball. The guards were snapping the balls to the punter, back on the ground, bouncing over their head. Coach Schembechler sees this. He walks down there. I try to keep a straight face, got my arms crossed, just looking straight ahead like I don't know he's there. Finally, after the guard snaps the ball and it bounces over the punter's head, he says, "Fry, you're not going to let that guy snap during the ball game, are you?" I said, "Coach Schembechler, we don't plan on punting tonight." He ran up to me and offered me a piece of his sugarless gum. He said, "Have a piece of gum." I've never told this story in public before because I was embarrassed. I grabbed the whole package and took off. I put that package of gum on my desk and was there for years, particularly in spring training. One of our scrimmages we dedicate to the Michigan team, knowing how difficult it is to defeat Michigan to get ready, and that motivated us to have, we had 6 games with Michigan that were decided by 3 points or less. That's when they had some great ball clubs. So you fans, you know a lot of things about Iowa football, but there are so many things that were really astounding. I always thought that football was a game to have fun and enjoy it. And I see so many football coaches today, when a player drops the ball, misses a tackle or whatever, and he comes off the field and the coach grabs him, or he pops him with his arm, or he uses profanity. You know what? I coached 47 years, and to my knowledge, I don't recall a player making a mistake on purpose. He didn't drop the ball on purpose. He didn't miss a tackle on purpose. Coaches get paid a phenomenal salary nowadays to teach them how to do it right. And it hadn't sunk in on some of the coaches.
A lot of people don't realize, but one of the greatest coaches in college football, along with Coach Fry, was Bo Schembechler, and a lot of people may not know it, but he was a great friend of yours too, wasn't he, Bo?
Yeah, he really was, and I see a gentleman over here holding up a poster of me and Johnny Orr. I believe that's Johnny.
Yep.
Johnny Orr, the basketball coach at Iowa State. When I was the athletic director, football coach at North Texas, he brought his basketball team from Michigan down to North Texas in the playoffs to see who was going to be in the NCAA tournament, and we became good friends. And even though he was at Iowa State as a basketball coach, we became good friends. And I have to share this story with you, and all you ladies and children, please forgive my vocabulary. If you knew Johnny Orr, it was a little bit different. But anyway, we're playing golf in West Des Moines, and I didn't even know that he lived on the golf course, but he did. We're walking down the fairway, and his wife, bless her heart, had a little dementia. She's on the balcony up above the fairway. As we walk along, she cups her hands and hollers, "Coach Fry, how you doing?" And Johnny Orr looks at me and he says, "Well, I'm an SOB. She remembers your name and she doesn't remember mine."
It's a great story. Question? Any more out here? he wants to know how Chuck Long beat Michigan State holding the ball over his head. But Chuck, the answer is because you saw me in the end zone and you ran to me, I thought.
Phil was the first one to congratulate me. Remember that, Phil? You were right there at the right time, Phil. Michigan State game, let me set it up for you. We went on a last 2-minute drive. We get down to the 4-yard line, and we call a timeout. It's our last timeout. And I go to the sideline, and here's the confidence of Coach Fry. He said, Charlie, he always called me Charlie. He said, Charlie, we're going to do this. We're going to run an isolation play on the left-hand side of the line of scrimmage, but you're not going to tell anybody. Don't hand the ball off to Ronnie. Just put it on your hip and go around the right side. You're going to score a touchdown. Well, I kind of looked at him funny, and I said, Coach, have you seen me run? I said, hey, what if I don't make it in? And he took his glasses off. Whenever he took his glasses off, uh-oh, look out. So he took his glasses off. I said, Charlie, just do what I tell you to do. You're going to score, but make sure you don't tell anybody. So I do the fake. We do the isolation play. I didn't hand it off to Ronnie Harmon. I rolled around there. Anybody in this room could have scored that touchdown. But here's again, I was in coaching. If you're a defensive unit, if you're on the goal line defense, what would you tell your backside cornerback to do? Anybody that knows defense? Stay at home, right? Well, that backside cornerback for Michigan State did not stay at home. He crashed the party. He tried to make the play, which allowed me to score. Does anybody know who the linebackers coach for Michigan State was that day? Anybody? Norm Parker. Who is the starting strong safety for Michigan State? Phil Parker. Now here's the best part. The defensive coordinator and secondary coach, who his guy busted, blew his assignment. Who is the D coordinator and secondary coach for Michigan State? Nick Saban. It's the only time I've ever beaten Nick Saban.
I congratulated Chuck after he scored the touchdown, and I said, Charlie, why did you hold the ball up over your head before you even got into the end zone? He looked at me and he said, Coach Fry, you remember last year and I scored a touchdown at Michigan State and they said I didn't score? I want to make damn sure they saw the ball.
You guys seen these T-shirts out there? This was Hayden when he had his mustache. You guys here, you got anything else you want to say before we wrap this up? That was a great season, 1985. It was a magical season. It was a magical, you think about that, the coaches that were on that staff, Bill Brazier, Bill Snyder, Barry Alvarez. There are, probably over 150 coaches now that are part of the Hayden Fry coaching tree, coaches or players that are out there doing something with football in college or the pros. And I think maybe at the time we took it a little bit for granted, but we had something very special at that time with Hayden Fry. And of course, Kirk Ferentz is on that staff. And it was something we all look forward to talking about, reminiscing about. That's why there's so many people here for FRYfest. So on behalf of all of you, I want to say thank you to Mike Haight, Bill Happel, Larry Station, Chuck Long, and most of all, the person this is named after, head coach Hayden Fry. Thank you all. These five will be at an autograph table in 15 minutes, and they'll be signing autographs for everyone.